But you still felt like touring was like a later, like what you said about New York City, like you went there and you understood it right away, and so you're able to thrive there. Like, did you feel that way about touring like early on? Where
Oh,
you're like,
yeah, I mean,
this is totally for me,
dude. Like I grew up like in a single parent household, and we grew up poor, and we moved like once a year minimum, like all the time. And like, so I'm just gonna tell you like a little anecdote so you can understand like kind of my like where I come from and my stock. One year my mom was working like a she was working like a 6-month contract like temp job at the post office where she eventually ended up working and retiring from, and like she lost her job after the 6 months, and it was, I don't know if it was like congruent with our lease being up on the place that we lived in or whatever, or if she just couldn't pay the next month's rent and we got kicked out. I don't know the details of that. I'd have to ask her. But like me and my sister, who's like 8 years younger than me, like we were, I think I was probably like 11 or 12, so that means my sister was like 3 or 4. Like my mom lost her job, we lost the house, and all she knew how to do was go on a road trip with us. So we went on tour. Like we went to Grandpa's house in Kansas. We went to in Montana. We went to Grandma's house in fucking Kansas. And like, you know, little did I know this was all like, you know, this was survival stuff for us to be able to, you know, we'd go there and they'd give us food, you know, and my mom could have a financial break from what it means to be a single parent with 2 kids, you know. And she was just doing the fucking best she could, you know. And so we just drove and we went there, and then we went to California and hung out with some friends that lived there. But like we spent 2 months on the road, like living in the car and Grandpa's and you know, and like it was awesome. I loved it, you know. I was built for that shit. And she was built for that shit. She was just like, I don't care. Like, you know, when I was a kid, when I was like a toddler, I barely remember this, but like every once in a while, she'd just be like my favorite thing when I was a kid, and you know, still in some capacity, barring capitalism, is Disneyland, dude. I love Disneyland. Disneyland was rad, and like we lived in Washington, we lived in Seattle or Oregon or whatever. But like my mom would just put me in the car, and like we'd get in the car and we'd start driving, and I'd be like, "Where are we going?" And she'd be like, "We're going to see, you know, Aunt Barbara." Aunt Bobby had a house in Anaheim, and we'd go post up there and go to Disneyland. And like that was just something fun to do, you know, back when Disneyland didn't cost $200 to get in, you know. And we'd go see family and go to Disneyland, and we just drive down and up and down I-5. I've been doing this since I was 2. You know, like I've been doing this drive, you know, from you know, in some capacity, you know, save for the time that I lived in New York, like I've drove from Seattle to at least Sacramento, I don't know, like 30, 40 times in my life. Like, you know, like, you know, so the traveling part, like I travel super well, you know, like that part's a foregone conclusion. I can travel with people, I can get along with people, I'm pretty easygoing, I'll eat whatever, I'll, you know, do whatever. But that, you know, so the touring part wasn't a mystery to me. I can get on the road whenever, that's fine. It was the technical stuff, and it is really like the, you know, it's just concepts that I just didn't have a solid handle. Dude, it took me like 2 years to like really understand signal flow.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm like literally straddling between like right and left brain. You know, I want to create, but I want to organize, and I can't do either very well. So, you know, I just sort of like live in the middle, you know.
Yeah.